Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. Happy Thursday to all of you. And so today, I'm really very much looking forward to my chat. Actually, this is one of my favorite topics, and I know Autumn, my special guest, feels the same way. This is something that we're always, chatting about, kind of in the background. So anyway, we are going to be talking all about the sales process today, which I know for many of you kind of makes you cringe, right? It's like, ew, if only I did not have to sell, life would be so much better. After today's session or after today's live stream, my hope is that, you're going to kind of put some of those fears to rest. And we're going to share with you some strategies and tips to help move you forward. And so we're going to be hopefully going to look at transforming your conversion mindset. All right. So that is our goal today. So before we jump in and before I give you an update on exactly what we're going to be talking about, I want to quickly introduce to you my wonderful guest, and that is Autumn Beam. And Autumn is one of my awesome rock star clients who's killing it when it comes to sales. Like, crazy conversion rates, absolutely amazing. So welcome, Autumn. How are you today?
Great. Glad to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Leslie. I love talking about sales.
I know,
People
right?
are like, this is the last thing I want to talk about. And I'm like, no, really, it's super fun. I didn't always feel that way, though. When I first started in sales, it was a lot of anxiety around it, which is super normal, right? But over time, I was able to change my own mindset and make myself a little bit more comfortable with the whole process. And I learned a lot about myself and about how to communicate, how to talk to people, what my goal was, what I was really trying to accomplish through it. So I've been in sales since I was 16 years old.
16? Yeah.
16.
Okay. What did you do when you were 16? Tell us a little bit about the journey.
Sure. So one of my first jobs in high school was it was a sports store in Southern California. It used to be called Chick Sporting Goods. And it actually they wanted to model their customer service style after Nordstrom. And they did this fairly well, actually. Mm-hmm. So, I sold all kinds of athletic wear and also different brands like Roxy, Quicksilver, a lot of surf brands and stuff like that, because it's Southern California, on commission. And so it was our job to help all the customers and that kind of stuff. And then I graduated from college and went into working in outside sales. And almost every single job I ever had some kind of sales component, except for I was a high school teacher for a couple of years. I taught business and marketing. And the education process actually taught me a lot about talking to my clients now and what I do now. So it's funny how every little piece along the way has kind of culminated into being a nutritionist and educating people. And so I've always been really passionate about, I was a sales trainer for a while. So I'm really passionate about helping people understand the sales process and sort of helping them to get over some of that anxiety and change their mindset a little bit. So this kind of lends itself to what I've developed over the years in terms of things I'm excited about.
You've done a lot of things.
It's random.
But I gotta tell you, I knew you had a background in business, but I don't think I realized that you taught high school. That's amazing. So you've done lots of things.
I did. Yeah. Texas has I got in Texas actually, because my husband was in the Army. And they have a department in their elective, some of the electives, it's called Career and Technology Education. And so I fell into that department. So it was random. Like I taught accounting, marketing. It was crazy. I even taught computers. So I taught like how to use Microsoft Excel. And I can't even say that I'm a whiz at it. My husband like makes me, my husband. He puts me to shame. And I'm like, and I taught this. But yeah, so it's just all kind of random. And I always used to say like, I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none. And I had friends who had like careers, who were very like, climbing the ladder in one thing that
Right.
they knew they were really passionate about. And I felt like I jumped all over the place and I never found like my thing. But over 20 years, it's like I finally found my thing. And it
Yeah,
just
tell
wasn't
us what you are now. Yeah, tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, because you definitely have found your thing, right? And I think based on what I know about you, the sales part really helps you be super, super successful in offering your services. So tell everyone just a little bit about what you're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I went to graduate school and I got a degree a number of years ago in clinical nutrition. So I'm actually a certified nutrition specialist. And so I see private clients and help them do personalized nutrition. And I work with a lot of different people. I work with military families. I work with, stay-at-home moms, working moms. I work with influencers, actually, being in LA. There's a lot of those here. So I work with influencers.
Right.
To do personalized nutrition. And of course, part of that is getting the clients to pay you and to let you do that thing that you are so passionate about.
Right. And it's because you're in private practice, right? Like
Exactly.
if you worked for somebody, I mean, actually even then there might still be a sales component, right?
There absolutely is. Absolutely. Like if you worked in a chiropractic clinic or a medical clinic, but you were responsible for developing this nutrition program, it's the same process, because even if an in-house chiropractor is going to refer a client to you, for nutrition,
right.
You still need, you need to talk to them and turn them into a nutrition client within the same practice.
Absolutely. So yeah, even if you are employed, by chiropractors, whatever the case may be, sales still is really super important in order to, I mean, you just got to be able to do it, right? I mean, there's so many reasons, which we're going to delve into. So, to give everyone just a little bit of an overview, specifically around what we're going to be delving into today, we're going to talk about how to sprinkle seeds that can help sell your next product. We're going to talk about conversion rates and what they really mean and how it impacts your bottom line. We'll talk about the biggest hangups that practitioners have when it comes to selling. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing Autumn's personal to-do list to prepare for her discovery calls. And of course, lots more in between. So, so we've got a really great conversation lined up for you today. So let's just jump in. So you told us a little bit about, your background and how there always seemed to be a sales element. What do you think why do you love it? Tell us, like a little bit about that. What, because I know you and I talk a lot about this, and most practitioners do not love it. In fact, they despise it, right?
Yes.
It causes a lot of discomfort, a lot of stress. Most practitioners are so uncomfortable talking about money, and they feel like, ooh, I don't know how to. Well, first of all, they think it's about selling themselves, right? I don't know how to sell myself. That makes me feel really uncomfortable. So, so what do you have to say about that? And what makes you like it?
Yeah, there's nothing better than being able to put yourself in a position to help somebody. And so when it comes to, getting somebody from a potential client to B, becoming a client, to me, it's not about the money. We get hung up on that. We get hung up on whether or not they're going to think we charge too much, or, does this person have the money? I know this person tells me they are, I don't know, XYZ single mom, whatever, and so they, we make these assumptions like they must not have enough money, and maybe they think I charge too much. And then we start to lose our confidence. But the goal is, you got into this business to help people. And so you converting that person from a potential client to a client is like, yes, it's that first step to being able to see that person's life completely change. And that's the thing that drives me.
Okay. So it is, I mean, at the end of the day, it is what allows you to do the work that you love, transforming someone's life.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're able to see that big picture kind of in the heat of the moment, right? Which is kind of unusual, right? Because most of us, hunker down and, we're super worried about what we're going to say. And will they like me? Will they think my prices are too ridiculous? Oh, not even to mention, who do I think I am? Right? Like a lot of those mindset issues.
Yeah, the imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. Exactly. So have you ever struggled with that yourself?
100%. Completely.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a person on this planet who isn't like a sociopath or something who has not struggled with some level of imposter syndrome. But we have to remember, like, we know more than we think that we do, we really know more. It's just that we get, we go through school and we go through the role plays and we go through the protocols and we know all the answers in school, and all of a sudden, we get a real client in front of us, and we freeze up like we don't know what the heck we're doing.
Right.
And we really do. And sometimes, we have different colleagues or different things like that can help rally us a little bit. And, you can bounce ideas off of and say, hey, I have this client and I'm pretty sure XYZ is what I'm supposed to do. And they're like, well, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. And then maybe think about this other thing. And you're like, oh yeah. So, having a community of colleagues that you can bounce things off of in a HIPAA compliant manner, obviously, is really helpful in lifting you up out of that imposter syndrome. So, oftentimes, there's always going to be a new situation. I mean, you could be 10 years into being a nutritionist and still have a new situation come up that you have to navigate, either because this person has a specific type of personality you've never worked with, or their situation is slightly different because they have this secondary situation that you've dealt with this thing, but not this thing with this thing. So, there's always going to be a new situation that's going to make you feel like you don't know what you're doing. But, having those people around you is really, really helpful. And just remembering you're smarter than you remember you are in that moment.
Exactly. Yeah. And it is just your inner gremlin, keeping you safe, right? Trying to keep you safe, supposedly.
Yeah. Self-preservation in a way, but not really, right? It's sort of self-sabotaging.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's self-sabotage for sure. So what do you think the biggest hangups are that many practitioners experience when it comes to being successful in this particular area?
Sure. And I mean, there's a lot of different things, and it's different for different people. Mm-hmm. Some people are more comfortable with some things and some people are not. So it just kind of depends. That's my answer for a lot of things, even with my clients. It depends. When they ask me a question, it depends.
Yeah.
So in this situation, I would say what the hang up is sort of depends, and there's a few different ones. But I think the thing that I hear the most often from people who don't, particularly healthcare practitioners who do not have a background in sales, and they don't consider the fact that a discovery call is a sales call. They don't make that connection that that's exactly what it is. Right. And then they get hung up with the word sales. Like, well, I don't want to be pushy, or I don't want to seem like a sales person. That's something that's really, really common. Yeah. Or like, well, sales doesn't come naturally to me. And I would say there are definitely some personalities that lend itself a little bit better. Like your extroverted people are going to have a little bit of an easier time with sales than our introverted people. But I know some introverted people who are fantastic salespeople at the same time. So you labeling yourself extroverted or introverted, it doesn't really matter. And some of it is just a matter of trial and error and experience. And we learn so much by actually failing at a sales call sometimes than we do at being successful at it, because we learn where the conversation went wrong, or we analyze it afterwards and go, what could I have done better? Or maybe
Yeah.
maybe you don't do any of that, and we need to like teach you how to do that, and just think about what went wrong. But that pushiness aspect, I think, is one of the ones that people really get hung up on. And the thing that we have to remember about it is, like, there's a difference between digging in and getting underneath the reservation the person is having, and not listening. And if they're telling you, no, this isn't right for me, and you're like, but wait, and you're trying to convince them when they've already given you a very distinct answer, that's being pushy. And I would argue that 99.9% of you are not doing that, and wouldn't do that.
I would totally agree.
No, that's a distinct answer. Conversation over, But if they're like, oh, well, I don't know if I can afford it, or I'm not sure about this, that's not a no. And you getting underneath what they're thinking in that situation is not being pushy. It's actually helping them get out of their own way.
Yes.
And it's helping them understand what it's like. Like, sometimes when people are like, well, I'm not sure, I'm not sure about the money. Oh, the biggest thing that I see with clients is that they are actually having self-doubt about whether or not they'll be successful in this nutrition journey. And so they're using money as an excuse to be like, well, I'm not gonna, I don't know. Like, cause I get it. Like, it is scary when you're like looking down the barrel of an expensive program and thinking, I don't know if I believe in myself enough that this is not going to be a waste of money. So it's really about what's underneath those things, not actually what they're saying is the concern. So if you're taking, like, I don't know about the money as face value, like it's really about the money, then you're really missing a lot about what's really going on underneath.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any tips for how to get underneath what's really going on? Like, if someone says exactly what you just stated, as an example, gosh, Autumn, I don't know if I can really afford this. Because I would venture to say that most of us would take that for face value. Like, oh, okay, I get it. I'm here if you're in a better position. You know what I mean? Like, I think we would probably, many of us would end the conversation there and take it for face value. So what would you do? Do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, absolutely. A couple different things. Some of it is context. Sometimes you can tell based on what they've said earlier. Yeah. So if they have already out the gate said, well, I've done XYZ diet before and it didn't work, or I've tried these other things and it didn't work, or, I failed at this and gained all the weight back, or whatever it is that they're saying, I will almost automatically assume it's not actually about the money. But if I'm not sure, then I might say something like, well, tell me about that.
Yeah.
Great. And then they might say, oh, well, we have this. I had one client discovery call recently where she wasn't really sure about the money because they had a kid about to go to college in a couple of months, and they were doing a massive, like, I don't know, $25,000 kitchen remodel or something.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, yeah, then maybe this isn't the right time for you to be spending this money, but that's sort of up to you and what your goals are and what I kind of put the ball in their court a little bit when it comes to when it's actually a real financial burden. But when I say, tell me about that, and then they start rolling out all these financial things that are coming up for them, then it's like, okay, well, let's talk about that. And hey, when is the kitchen remodel over? Oh, it's over in September? Great. Why don't I put you on my list in September to circle back with and see if it's a better time? Because it's okay. That's like double negative, but it's not a conversion. If they say, if they're not saying no, they're saying not right now. And that is not a failed sales conversion. It is genuinely not the right time for this person. If the person is about to go on vacation, so like, tell me about that. Oh, well, I'm actually going on vacation for 3 weeks, blah, blah, blah. Oh, great. What day do you get back? Let's circle back then, So, but a lot of the times I would say those times are much more infrequent than when somebody's really just afraid that they're wasting their money because
Yeah.
they lack self-confidence. Like, I do a pre-call survey, and in that pre-call survey, I have them answer on a scale of 1 to 10, like kind of how ready they are to jump into this thing.
Yeah.
And if they answer anything less than a 10, there's a self-confidence issue.
Okay.
Generally. So that gives you that context.
There's definitely something going on, right? If it's not like super, super important, a 10, maybe a 9, but I would say 9 or 10. I find some people do answer a 9 because they'll be like, well, like nothing's 100, right? Nothing's like, right? Like they got to give themselves a little wiggle room. But for sure, like 8, 7, forget about it, right? It's definitely not to say you wouldn't necessarily talk to the person, but there's definitely something going on there, right? That
absolutely
that got in their way.
Yeah, and I've never had anyone mark less than a 6, because if you're less than a 6, you're not even filling out that survey, really. Let's be honest.
You're not looking, you're not filling it, you're not going to take the time to fill this out. Yeah, I would agree with that. So yeah, a lot of times people, I always say that too, people just get in their own way. And they do tend to use money as a smokescreen. Because they're scared. They're afraid that they've tried, because most of these people have struggled for many, many, many years, right? It didn't just crop up overnight, typically. And they probably tried a lot of things. They think they should be able to do it themselves. That's another really big one. Like, why can't I figure this out? Like, there's the internet. I should be able to figure it out. Well, figuring it out and doing it, figuring it out by yourself, first of all, is next to impossible. But even if you could, you've got the whole doing it part that is really, really challenging to do when you're in your own little bubble, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So I think the big takeaway here for everybody is, first of all, it's really important to have a roadmap in terms of how you have these discovery calls, right? Like,
absolutely.
I remember, even though I had a very, very long sales history, working in sales, working in marketing, when I started my own nutrition practice, it was so interesting. Like, all of a sudden, I didn't really have like a roadmap. Oh, I know why it was. It's because in my coach training, oh my God, the kiss of death strategy. I remember they said, go, do a free session, like a free session. They'll love it so much, they're going to want more. Oh my goodness. Like, that is the thing you don't want to do. It just doesn't work. So if any of you are doing that strategy and kind of wondering why you're getting no's, that's probably why. It has to be very strategic. So what we're talking about here is not actually doing a session, an assessment with a whole bunch of, action steps, right? Really, we're digging into, I think what we're doing in the big picture is helping that particular potential client move through that, that change process. I think we're helping them to increase their readiness for change, because they get so much more awareness around what's at stake. How is this problem? How is it spilling over? How is it impeding them from living the life that they desire? And then what's possible? We're also really injecting hope, because we're giving them space to talk about what it would feel like if they were successful. And then, of course, we're bridging the gap between those 2 points with our solution. So, so I think one of the key things is, you need a roadmap. You need a blueprint for how you're going to have these conversations. Otherwise, you lose control, right? You just lose control, and the person feels like it's just time to pick your brain, right? Like, ooh, good, I get to, pick her brain for free. That is not what this is about. And I would say the other big thing is that it's really not even about you, right?
No.
Hello, it is not
Not at
about
all.
you. And I think that is, let's talk about that for a few minutes, because that's the big thing that I hear from practitioners is like, oh, it's so uncomfortable. I hate selling myself. Ew. Well, guess what? Newsflash, it ain't about you. It really isn't.
No. Well, that's my question.
There's something wrong.
Yeah,
right?
that's my first question when you say that is like, why do you need to sell yourself? That's not what the discovery call is about.
Right.
You have a little bit of information on your website about yourself. You may have been referred, or your client was referred to you by another practitioner for a very specific purpose, in which case they're a warm lead. And, it's not cold calling. If they were referred by somebody else, they know a little bit about what you're about, how you can help, because the person that referred them to you already has told them something about it. They're not just like, go talk to this random person for no reason.
Right.
So you're really not selling yourself. You might be discussing your experience. So, I had another client in this situation that you're complaining about, and we did X and Y and Z to get her from this place to this place.
Right.
That's not selling yourself. That is, I guess you could say that's selling a little bit about your experience.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what they want to know. They want to know, how are you going to help me?
Right.
Not, who are you? Tell me all your degrees and what the letters after your name mean, and everything you learned in all 17 classes in your master's degree program. Like that's not what
they don't care about that.
No. They just want somebody that is nice, that isn't going to like be mean to them, and help them. Yeah, that's it. You really don't need to sell yourself. And the other thing is, like, that's really important, because this is the top thing that I hear, second to being pushy, is being worried about how to price your packages or your services. People really, really undersell themselves. I told multiple people when I was in grad school, I hadn't even graduated yet, and they were charging very low amount of money for hour-long services. And I was like, no. Just like, no, because they're so concerned that their prices are too high and people won't pay them. But here's the thing that we have to remember is we price our packages according to into what we are offering, what it is worth that we are offering. And in some cases it's priceless, really, let's be honest. But in terms of how much, because there's time in the session, there's note taking, there's protocol making, there's contacting other healthcare practitioners if you're kind of in the loop with everybody. All of that is hours and hours and hours work. And so you have to be able to include that in what your pricing is worth, not to mention any other bonuses that you're offering now. And frankly, here's what I'm going to say, and people might, look at me and kind of blink a little bit, but their finances are none of your business.
Oh my God, let's talk about that.
Like, let me say it louder for the people in the back. Their financial situation is none of your business. The people who spend the most money with me are the people on paper who look like they have the least. And it's oftentimes because they prioritize their health. In terms of our finances and our budgets, we prioritize the things that are the most important to us. Like, we have this we want a nice big house. We're going to put our big bucket of money into our mortgage or our rent. So we have this nice house and nice cars, or whatever it is that is important to you. If somebody's health is important to them, they are going to prioritize that over all else. I mean, one of the people who spends the most money with me is a single mom who lives with her mother and her son, and is a substitute teacher, but is in full-time grad school.
Oh my God. Are you kidding
me? On
me?
paper, no lie. And on paper, and she's not in massive debt. She's not just like throwing crap on credit cards,
Yeah.
So it's like her health is so important to her that she prioritizes that. And like, so between seeing me and supplements that are necessary, I don't overprescribe supplements. Nobody wants that. and food that she puts in her house. That is her number one priority.
And that's
where most of her money goes. So her finances are none of my business. And if I would have decided, oh, she's a substitute teacher, single mom living at home with her parents,
I never would have invited her in because you would have just thought it's impossible. I want to hear from the audience. How many of you can relate? Do you guys have stories about what we're talking about here? People that really surprised you, people that you thought, no way. And then that's where you get your yeses. I'd love to hear from you. We actually have some comments. So the imposter syndrome. Hey, Tammy, how are you? So yeah, that's a big one, right? Hey, Dorothy, so good to see you. Yeah, it's a great conversation for all health practitioners across the board. Because again, if you're in private, especially if you're in private practice, you gotta sell. It's just, it's part of the job. It's different. Like maybe if you worked in a hospital, maybe, but even then, I don't know, just the way things are structured nowadays, I still think there's a sales element no matter where you go nowadays.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. It's always part of it.
Yeah, it really is. Like whether it's retention, whether, just, there's just sales. I mean, I just don't think you can avoid it. Yeah, so helpful when RD salaries have been low for so long. It feels crazy to go from getting paid $33 an hour to ask someone to pay you $125 plus. Yeah, I get it. Mm-hmm. And guess what? You're worth that and more, right? Because really what we're looking at here is how can you even place a value on the outcome? So we're really looking at the results that you help people to achieve, right?
Yep, absolutely. They want to know the end goal. What's the end game here? What are you going to get? Like, here's where I am now. What are you going to get me? Where are you going to get me in 3 months?
Yeah, exactly. That's what they want to know. And so it's very difficult to quantify the value in that, right? So we have to look at, a variety of different variables, but at the end of the day, it definitely is, when you look at those results, it's up there in terms of incredible value that you're providing people. Let's see what else we have. Oh, hey, Tammy. So Tammy would like to know tips on when business is cash pay and client asks, oh, do you take insurance? Okay.
Oh my gosh, I have the best answer for this. I get this question almost every single call. I get this question. And every time I tell people, I actually don't take insurance directly. I can submit a super bill for you, or I can send you a super bill that you can submit to your insurance. Every insurance company is different, so I can't guarantee how much they'll pay back for my services or if they will pay you anything back at all. But let me tell you why I don't take insurance. I don't take insurance because the insurance company limits how I can do my job, because they limit how much they'll pay me back, how long I can work, with a particular client. And frankly, the way that they've set it up sets me up to not be able to help my clients as much as I can help my clients doing it my way. And that satisfies pretty much everybody. They're just like, oh, I had no idea insurance limits you on what you can do. And I'm like, yep. Like, they tell me I can talk to you for 50 minutes, but my initial consultation, I need to talk to you at least 90 to get a sense for what's going on. Like, that's how I approach it. Everybody approaches things differently. That's where I find the most success with my clients. And it really speaks volumes to them. And then they don't care as much about the insurance because they feel like they're getting more value. Like, you're right. Like, when I go into insurance stuff, like, think about it like a doctor. They get 20 minutes with the doctor, right? Because that's what insurance will pay for. And almost every single person who's been to a doctor in that situation can tell you that it doesn't feel like enough time to get what they need. And so when you frame it that way, it's like a light bulb moment for them, like, oh, this is so much better than what I would get in another model. And not to say that anybody who is in the insurance model is not helping their clients. That is not at all what I'm saying. So don't take it that way. It's just that I don't like the limitations that it brings, because it really just limits how much I can do with a person at a time. And I like to get them places faster. And I just don't think personally that I could do that with some of those limitations.
It's a completely different model, right?
Right. And all the other stuff I do outside of it for my clients, outside of the session.
Yeah, exactly. So, some people do really well in the insurance model. Some people are in the insurance model, and I do get these clients coming to me where they just feel super burnt out, but it's almost sort of like the golden handcuffs. They have a very difficult time getting out once they kind of embark on that model. And then some of us just know ourselves. Like, that was me. I can't even call my own insurance company. How in the world could I other people? Seriously, like, I'm not wired that way. I would be an epic failure in that model. I just know I would. So, so you just really have to make your, decisions based on that. But I love the answer. The bottom line is that's a brilliant answer. And Jeannie agrees. Great answer.
Thanks, Jeannie. Yeah. And really, I've thought about getting into the insurance model, because I thought, I'll probably get more clients that way. And maybe that's true. Maybe I would get more referrals through the insurance company if I was in the insurance model. But I started asking around rather than just doing it. I asked other CNSs, RDNs, whoever, like, hey, what's it like for you? And I would tell you, just about every single one of them told me, I wish I was not in the insurance model. I hate it.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are people who love it. I'm sure there are people out there who love it, but it's not the advice I got.
I hear a lot of mixed things. Some people love it, which is great. I hear a lot of people that it's more of a volume kind of a thing, right? You have to see a lot of patients, and so there's, I guess the one thing that I think has made it a little easier with the pandemic and, like telehealth and insurance reimbursement, for the most part, I think and I know it depends on which insurance plan you have, right, guys? But I think the silver lining is that a lot of people in that model can still see their patients or clients on telehealth. So they're not, as confined to an office, right? So,
so pros and cons.
Yeah, exactly. That's the bottom line. So, this person, and I can't see your name. StreamYard is very particular, or I should say, actually, it's not StreamYard, it's Facebook. So, but this person says that I was that person who had no money, but made it a priority. And now I'm a CNS. Good for you.
That's awesome.
That is so inspiring and awesome. Yeah, guys. We all know, like, it just depends on what is priority to you, right?
And it's not our job to decide what their priorities are.
It just isn't. It just isn't. So I think that is a really great point to keep in mind, that I love how you put it. It's none of our business. It's like, it just isn't. So I think the big takeaway here is, when you find yourself thinking, oh my God, they're not going to be able to afford it, because you need to rein yourself in and remind yourself it's none of your damn business, right? Like,
that's right. Right. And know your value, know your worth.
Yeah.
Like, you price your services based on what you think they are worth. The only discount that I give people, I don't even really give discounts to my own family. Like, I don't. Because
tell us about that. I want to hear all about this, because this is really common. How many of you struggle with this one?
Yeah,
I want to hear.
Yeah, I think that they should get advice for free. My mother and my husband generally get advice for free, and that's about it. And I do have a friends and family rate for my initial package, but my monthly packages, if I'm seeing people on a regular basis, I don't even give discounts to my family, because if I needed them for something, like, I have cousins who are like contractors and stuff. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't, you know, it's like that, they get paid what they're worth. So I
Right.
should get paid what I'm worth. And I don't want them, and I've actually told my family members this who do other things, like, do not give me a discount. Like, don't. This is what you're worth. I'm not expecting a handout because we're related. Like, I will pay you what you are worth.
That's awesome.
So.
Yeah. And there are plenty of studies out there that show in so many ways that we do value what we pay for, right? I think especially in like employee health, those types of benefits, right? Kind of brings me back to my days when I did do corporate health, and I would offer programs, and a lot of these corporations would say, we were talking about, well, who pays what? What percentage is the employee going to pay versus, the company. And a lot of them would say, there's like, they have to pay half. Otherwise, they have no skin in the game. Right. So, so I do really believe that. And I'll tell you what, when you invest, even, at a significant level, you're going to show up, you're going to do the work, and you're going to get better results. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah. And this is also why I tell interns, do not give away services for free. I know you're new at it, and I know that you're getting your feet wet and you haven't done this as much. You will not get good quality results from free clients, even as an intern, because they don't take it seriously because they're not paying for it. And I started charging people.
Yeah. Good. All right. So how do you respond to, I need to think about it? What do you do with that?
Well, that's a great question. And there's always, this is what we call overcoming an objection, because I need to think about it as really an objection.
Yes.
And they have not bought in. That's a fact of the matter. If they say I need to think about it, they're not bought into that they're going to get what they're going in for. And it could be, and I hate to say it, but it could be because your discovery call script is missing some really important things to help them see that already on the front end. That I've never had a person in the recent past, at least, that said I needed to think about it because of the way I set up my discovery call. The thing that I do get is, I need to talk to my husband about it, but because I can't make a financial decision without talking to them first, or my spouse, or whomever. And that's normal, because in my marriage too, I would be saying the exact same thing. But Lesli, you have a great approach for what to do in a situation like this, and I think my answer is the same as yours.
Yeah. And guys, you know what? I actually have an ebook, come to think of it. Let me see if I can. Okay, I have an ebook, word for word scripts on how to handle I can't afford it and other common objections. So
look at this seed she's dropping, you guys. Look at the sales seed she's dropping.
That's right. I just remembered I have it like in a little book. So go to leslibitel.com/objection. And you know what? I think oh, darn, hang on. I spelled it wrong. I do that. All right, let me do it again, guys. Bear with me. My typing skills, OBJECT. All right, go with the second one, leslibitel.com/objections, plural, and download the ebook. But what I want to share really quick is, okay, so first of all, if someone isn't sure, I would try to get underneath what's going on before you hang up from the call, because otherwise you're going to lose the person, right? So don't say, okay, great, so think about it and let me know, because it's over, right? So don't do that. Don't make that mistake. And then the other one that's super, and so I would just explore, right? And guys, a really good tip is, like, obviously you don't want to come across as confrontational, obviously. So really, like, approach this with a sense of curiosity. I think that is the best strategy is, tell me a little bit about that, right? Like, what part has you, like holding out or holding back? And if they're like, I don't know, usually they'll say what it is that's bothering them. And then I would just explore that deeper. If they don't really give you like I would end the call by saying, what is your gut feeling? Instead of like, can I let you know tomorrow and just ending it there, I would say, well, absolutely, I don't want you to feel pressured. That being said, what is your gut feeling? People will always tell you, well,
Mhm.
I like it, but, and they will tell you like that underlying objection.
Yep.
And then with the spouse thing, of course, like we understand that some investments we want to run by the spouse, but I think the distinction here is I would want to ask that person, I would say absolutely support you in doing that, and then I would say I'm curious, have you decided? Okay. So, in other words, you're asking the person, have you decided? Or are you asking your spouse to decide for you? Because if it's the latter, then you've got a problem, right? Because that person wasn't on the call, and most likely they're going to nix it. So, in that case, you really haven't done it well. Somewhere along the line, the discovery call probably went off the tracks, off the rails,
Yeah.
right? So I would really try to get underneath what's going on before you hang up that call, because that really is where a lot of these people just kind of disappear. So,
Yeah. And I need to think about it is sort of a fancy, I'm not going to call you back most of the time. And like 1 out of 10 might call you back and be like, okay, this sounds great. But I mean, most of the time that I need to think about is a fancy no.
So, hey, Eileen, how are you? What is your process for following up? So you hang up and they say they'll get back to you, et cetera, et cetera. So what do you do?
Sure. There's two different ways to kind of go about it. Like you could do it where you call them, and then you could do it where you have them call you back. Having a finite amount of time that you do this that is already decided before you hang up the phone is really, really important, because it sets expectations and sort of gives them a deadline to make a decision by. And that may seem like a pushy sort of way to do things, but the fact of the matter is it's really more psychological. It's not pushy. It's more like the longer they think about it, the more they have a chance for their self-doubt to creep in.
Yeah.
And if you're going more than 2 days without talking to them, and 3 would be pushing it, then they have a really big opportunity for that self-doubt to creep in and for them to be like, no, I can't do it. So making them putting them in a situation to decide a little quicker is great. So you could do it where you say, great, I'm going to call you at 11 o'clock on Friday. And let's say that time, I'm assuming that time works for them, because obviously you want to ask them what time works for them. If they're in a meeting, that doesn't help. But, I'm going to call you back at, 11 o'clock on Friday, and no pressure. Like if the answer's no, like that's great. Or maybe that's not a problem, but it just helps me to know, what's going on with that. And if you're ready to go, we'll get you signed up right there. And that's it. I like the idea. I know, Leslie, you like having them call you.
Yeah.
And I actually like that, because you don't want to waste your time calling people who don't pick up the phone.
Yeah.
And
I never want my clients to feel like they're chasing people. Like you're a busy practitioner and you're not about chasing people. And I actually feel pretty strongly about the power dynamic with that situation. So even for the discovery call, like that first initial call, my recommendation is they call you. You're not like chasing them, right?
And they always call me back. They always call. Yeah. Even if the answer is no, they called.
That's awesome. Yeah. So they call you, you want to make that clear, make that, now if they don't call, do I just, of course, like I'll pick up the call and, or I'll pick up the phone and I'll call them. A lot of times they'll be like, oh my God, thank you so much for calling. I, couldn't find the number, or I was confused. You know what I mean? But the intention being set is they call you for the initial call and that follow-up call, right? And and Autumn's exactly right. the longer the time span, the more likely things are to fall apart. So I would say, try to do the follow up the next day. I would just say, so, okay, great. So how's your calendar look tomorrow at noon, or, whatever time you want to offer. And that's how I would handle that.
Or if it's a spouse thing too, you could say, oh, great. When do you think you'll have time to chit chat with them about this decision? And they'll be like, oh, well, probably tonight at dinner. Great. Let's talk tomorrow at blah, blah, blah time that works for you. So when they said they could talk to their spouse, and then if their spouse gives the green light and they decide together this is the way to go, it's like you get them going right away, and you get them at the prime motivation, excitement place, and they are like raring to go. Let's do this thing. And an excited client is more apt to be successful too.
Yeah, totally. So, Tammy's asking about a script. And just as an FYI, I do have an entire course on how to do awesome sales calls. And I don't know if you have anything. I know, Autumn, you were going to share like your to-do list, what you do in preparation for a call.
Yeah.
So let's definitely do that. And then if anyone wants to take a peek at, so I have an evergreen version of consultations that convert. So if you want to look into that, that gives you word for word scripts, how to handle I can't afford it, how to get discovery calls in the first place, all those types of strategies.
Yeah. And I honestly, I do use a script. I have my own script that I utilize, but honestly, it's one that works for me that may not work for everyone, but Leslie's consultations that convert is probably one of the best things you can do for your business ever when it comes to converting sales calls is to do that Evergreen course. And so that's actually what I would recommend for the script and learning kind of that timeline and how to talk to people and stuff like that. That would be my recommendation.
Awesome. Thank you. So, Autumn, what is your to-do list? Like, how do you prepare for a sales or a discovery call?
Sure. So I do have, and like, this is a great segue because I do have a script that I utilize. And what I do is I don't know why. I think it just helps me to stay on track sometimes because especially if you have like a really talkative discovery call, they can kind of take you off the rails and lead the conversation in a way you don't want it to go. So I always have my script pulled up on the screen. I never listen to me. I never read from it. No, it's an outline. That's all it is. It's an outline for following like the lineage of the conversation. And if I get led astray, I can look back at that outline and be like, okay, where did we actually leave off and pick up from there? So having that script ready, and that script doesn't have to be every single word for word written out. Like I say this, then they say this, because it's funny. In all the sales training I've done, they do these like role plays. And it makes it seem so easy. It makes it go like, oh, well, they said this, and then I said this, and then they said yes, and it was so great. And then you get in the real world, and that's not how the conversation goes. And then what have you learned on how to talk to people? You really haven't learned it. So having your own scripts that you can kind of or follow, and then also knowing that overcoming objections piece, let me tell you, that piece is just something you learn over time. You can learn it in training. Leslie has a great training for that, but sometimes you're going to get objections you've never had before. And so you're going to learn over time how to sort of overcome those objections, or you're going to get an objection and maybe it didn't work out for you. And then you ask somebody like myself or Leslie, what should I have said so that if it ever happens again, you're more prepared. But I mean, having that script is really good. The trial and error, just the experience of doing it is going to be really, really helpful. And making sure that script contains really recognizing how they're feeling, not the name of their condition, but how does that condition make them feel? How does it affect their life? And then if they could wave a magic wand, what would that life look like if everything was better?
Right.
So they're trying to get from the complaint to that result. And that's what you're helping them feel. And getting that feeling and leading them through that feeling is going to help you with your success. Also, having referral partners who are good, what we call warm leads. So a cold lead, you think of like cold calling is like if you just randomly pick up the phone, like the robocalls you get all the time that you didn't ask for. Like those are cold calls. But if somebody refers somebody to you, that's what we call a warm lead. And those people are already primed to have this conversation with you. They have an idea of what you're going to get. You just have to get them the rest of the way. That's actually a little bit easier of a discovery call than just someone who like found your website randomly, honestly. Referrals and like personal experience with you from other clients, that's all really, really helpful. So having that script is just going to be really helpful, and just making sure that they see the value in what you are offering them. Like if you have a package, this package includes all of these things. So you're going to get from here to here through this mechanism, but you're also going to get all these other bonuses and all these other things, and really highlighting what it is that you're offering so that they see that value. That's going to make that dollar, whatever that dollar amount is, that is your package, is going to look easy because of all the things that you've offered them and the pricelessness of getting them feeling better.
That's right. All right, guys, we got to wrap up. Time flew. How's it possible?
I know.
Because I'm not
surprised. While we're wrapping up, the last thing that I want to say is keep track of your discovery calls. Keep track of who they were, where they came from. You can do this in Excel, and keep track of which, like, did they convert? Did they not convert? You can even have a note section as to why they didn't convert. But understanding your conversion rate is really, really important, because it tells you how well you're doing at the discovery call.
Yeah.
If you're not tracking this and you don't know what your conversion rate is, which is a percentage, then you really don't know how you're doing. Or, it's just, you're flailing, so having that number that you can actually track is really, really important. And not only that, it turns into like a leads list later, where you can go back to it and say, oh, this person didn't convert because it wasn't the right time because of XYZ life event. And you can then have a list of people to go back to kind of circle back with, and then maybe they'll become a client then.
I love that. All right, everybody, it is time to wrap up. Thank you for joining us. This was a great conversation, Autumn. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your time with us today. And I hope everyone has a great week, an awesome weekend, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week. All right, until then, bye for now.
Bye.